Coming up in today's video, Korvold is back with a new form that's actually quite formidable. 3 times the mana, a new standard mythic that actually does a pretty good job of giving you some mana multiplication, and the Throne of Eldraine, the, of course, set that Eldraine originated in, getting its own card. All that and more in today's video, so let's jump into it. Alright, thanks to everyone for watching, and before we get started, if you do enjoy the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Click the bell icon if you want to stay notified for all up-to-date content as it comes out. And August is still going, so if you do want to join the channel membership, there is still time. Scan the QR code on the screen for details on how, and during the month of August, any channel members will receive a free Magic the Gathering booster pack, so check that all out for details. But this should probably be the last Wilds of Eldraine main set video, unless I end up doing something talking about ratios or values a little bit later down the line. But in terms of new cards that I think are worth covering, we're going to cover the last couple of main set reveals, and then we're going to cover the Commander exclusive cards that will be available in set and collector boosters. So we will not waste any more time. We're going to start off with the actual standard legal cards. First off is Twining Twins. This is 2 blue for a creature that has Flying, Vigilance, and Ward 1. It is a fairy wizard with 4/4. And the instant side is 1 and a white. Exile target non-token creature. Return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So, definitely a really cool card for Blink decks in general, being able to get stuff off the field, and usually those are blue and white in color, if not more, you know, if you're playing something with extra colors, it has that going for it. The second side is okay. Flying Vigilance Ward 1 for 4 mana is not too bad, especially because it's attached to an adventure, so it's definitely a somewhat useful card. At the very least, it's going to end up putting some pressure on the opponent if you do bring it out, and, you know, with the Flying and the Vigilance, it's certainly not bad, and they're still going pretty strong with Ward on a lot of things, so it'll be very interesting to see whether or not this card has any kind of impact. Obviously, you have cards like Brazen Borrower that were pretty popular for a while in Standard and are still popular in other formats now, and this card kind of reminds me of that, although I think Brazen Borrower might be a little bit better. Food Fight is 1 and a red. It is an enchantment. It says artifacts you control have pay 2, sacrifice. This artifact deal damage equal to 1 plus the number of permanents named Food Fight you control. So basically, pay 2, sack an artifact, deal 2 damage. If you have more copies of Food Fight, you're able to, you know, benefit from that more. So obviously in Standard or Pioneer or other formats where you can play multiple copies of a card is where this is really going to shine. If you have 4 of them out, you can technically sack an artifact to deal 5 damage, which is not bad. I don't know how easily you're going to get 4 of them out, but that pressure could definitely start to mount up. And if you have a lot of extra artifacts, whether it's treasure tokens, food tokens, or roll tokens, you just want to sack those off, you can start to mass damage pretty quick. So not a bad card overall. Quick Study is a common, but it's 2 and a blue. It says draw 2 cards. I'm pretty sure this is the first just kind of like generically like 3 mana draw 2 for blue. I could be wrong, but I'm fairly certain that that's probably one of the better ones. I imagine this will certainly see play in various decks just because of the fact that it's pretty generic draw power. Obviously, you do have cards like Thirst for Knowledge that let you draw 2 and then discard 1 basic land or discard 2 other cards. I mean, this is pretty straight up just 3 mana for 2. Not horrible, and a common worth keeping an eye on. And for the main set, Virtue of Strength, I'm pretty sure all of these virtues have just been absolutely ridiculous, but this one is kind of a double whammy home run. The enchantment side is 5 green. If you tap a basic land for mana, it produces 3 times as much of that mana instead. Basically a Nyx Bloom Ancient, but as an adventure, and obviously that definitely has its benefits, and this is going to be really, really interesting, I think, for a lot of reasons, but being able to reduce enchantments, being able to cheese this out with stuff, you can get a lot of mana ramping going with this. I think this one's going to see play across the board, and then even its sorcery side is 1 green, return target creature or land from your graveyard to your hand. That's pretty darn good just for 1 green mana. So this is a win-win card. I do think it's one of those better ones. I mean, all of the Virtue Adventure enchantments have actually been pretty freaking good. Some a little better than others, but this one is right up there. And yeah, I definitely think this is going to be a good card that we're going to see a lot of play. You know, people love their ramp, and this is definitely a good way to get there, especially if you can get the cost of it down. Now, before we hop into the Commander stuff, I just want to let you guys know I did post another video earlier today. It is the Wilds of Eldraine Virtue and Valor Commander deck. We broke down all of the new cards as well as the noteworthy reprints in that. You can check that video out in the link in the description below or by clicking the card that should appear there in the video. So if you want to check that out and haven't done so yet, go ahead and do so. Now, moving into these cards are all part of the Commander set, but they're only going to be available in set boosters and collector boosters. They're not part of a Commander deck specifically. They've been doing this with sets for a while now, so it's just kind of, you know, par for the course. It's a set within a set, if you will. But we've got Court of Embereth, and it is 2 red enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 3/1 red knight creature token. Then, if you are the Monarch, Court of Embereth deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of creatures you control. So every turn you get a 3/1 red knight. Of course, maintaining your Monarch status, you're burning the opponent for what could end up being a pretty sizable amount if you're playing something that's able to put a lot of creatures out. Goblins is definitely something that came to mind here, like being able to spam a bunch of stuff if you are the Monarch. But obviously, like, if you have this out and you have a bunch of Goblin tokens, the opponents are going to probably work together to try to get this off the field, because it can basically, like, do a massive amount of damage without you having to really do anything, you know, if you control a lot of creatures. So it's a good card. I just think it's going to make you a target, and only certain decks are really going to be able to utilize it to its fullest potential. Court of Garenbrig is 1 green enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, distribute 2 +++ encounters among up to 2 target creatures. Then, if you're the Monarch, double the number of +++ encounters on each creature you control. Again, really solid card. Being able to put counters on stuff is always good, and green has plenty of ways to double counters, so it's not hard to get there. But doubling all counters on each creature you control, that could really start to add up. I mean, think about playing that with something like Vorinclex that doubles counters, or doubling Season, or both, and you're just starting to make your creatures massive beat sticks with, I mean, you really just have to kind of maintain your Monarch status. But again, going around the table, someone's going to try to hit you and take that Monarch status, and it does happen during your upkeep, so it might be pretty challenging to make that happen. I don't know. If you can figure out a way to do it, it's certainly very good. And obviously, if you can, like, I don't know, Teferi's Protection or blink yourself out somehow so the opponents can't hit you, then I think you stay the Monarch regardless for the turn, and unless I'm misunderstanding the mechanic, but I'm pretty sure they have to damage you directly. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways to look at this, but it's definitely a solid card. Court of Ardenvale is 2 white enchantment. When you enter the battlefield, you become the Monarch. You guys can see a theme here. At the beginning of your upkeep, return target permanent with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to your hand. If you're the Monarch, return that permanent to the battlefield instead. Definitely a little bit weaker, but not bad. It's certainly nice in, I'm thinking in, like, Commander, where you can get, like, fetch lands back and stuff, or, you know, have a consistent way to get access to lands, and obviously being the Monarch, putting permanents on the battlefield's pretty good as well. 3 or less, I mean, there's a good pool of things you can choose from here, so it's not just reusing fetches. Obviously, you can get back some lower cost enchantments or creatures, what have you, but there's a lot of ways to utilize this. It's just, again, you're hoping that it comes back around to your upkeep, and that you are the Monarch in order to get, you know, the full usage out of it, and that's not always as easy said as it is done. Court of Vantress is 2 blue enchantment. When enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose up to 1 other target enchantment or artifact. If you're the Monarch, you may create a token that's a copy of it. If you're not the Monarch, you may have Court of Vantress become a copy of it, except it has this ability. Kind of interesting. So basically, no matter what, you can definitely copy the enchantment or artifact. You can make this become the copy if you're not the Monarch. But if you are, then you get a token that's a copy, and you keep this. So you're basically just starting to actually generate stuff to keep around permanently versus just temporary. Being able to make copies of mana rocks or other enchantments is certainly not something to sleep on, and I definitely think this card is interesting. Again, we just get back into the whole Monarch mechanic and whether or not you can, you know, feasibly make that work and maintain that status till your turn comes back around. And Court of Locthwain, 2 black. When it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of target opponent's library. You may play it for as long as it remains exiled, and you can spend mana of any type to cast it. If you're the Monarch, until end of turn, you may cast a spell from among cards exiled this way without paying its mana cost. Again, pretty darn good. Being able to play the opponent's stuff is solid, but if you're the Monarch, that benefit is significantly increased because you can basically play cards, you know, from anything that's exiled, and the way I'm understanding it, it doesn't even have to be, you know, it doesn't even matter when your cards are exiled. You can just play this, you know, exile something, the next turn, as long as you're still a Monarch, you can cast a card previously. So there's a lot of potential with this if you can figure out a way to kind of maintain that Monarch status. And the Monarch would likely sit on the throne of Eldraine, which is a new card, and of course continues the theme of some other cards having the actual name of the set be the name of the card. This is 5 mana, colorless, and it's a legendary artifact. When it enters the battlefield, choose a color. Add 4 mana of the chosen color. Spend this mana only to cast mono-colored spells of that color. Or pay 3, tap, draw 2 cards. Spend mana only of the chosen color to activate this ability. In mono-colored commander decks, this card is absolutely insane. Being able to pay 5 to get 4 mana every turn going forward is basically giving you an 80% increase on your mana investment into this, and consistent draw power for decks that really struggle with that is pretty good. And if you're only playing one color anyway, there's really no reason not to utilize this card. Just an absolute powerhouse of a card that I think is going to have a lot of intrigue, and being colorless, really kind of incentivizing you to maybe play more monocolored decks is definitely a good thing to increase the diversity of Commander as a whole. So huge weight on this card in my opinion. I think it's really good, and I think it is going to have a place in tons of monocolored strategies. Renard, Ginger Sculptor is 1 green, white, blue. It is a legendary creature, human artificer. Each creature you control that's a food or a golem gets +2/+2 and has trample. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may exile it. If you do create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 1/1 food golem artifact, in addition to its other types, and has pay 2 tap, sack this artifact, you gain 3 life. Thematically, it's really cool. He's basically making the food. Buffing your foods are pretty solid, too. Like, I don't know, if you're playing, like, Ginger Brute and stuff, buff it up by 2, so it's a 3/3 with trample, you know, or other food creatures, and you can basically utilize this card to turn them into food creatures. So, stuff dies, they still keep their effects, they become food or golem artifacts. I like it. It's definitely a fun commander. I think people could find ways to build around, and of course, it does have access to green and white, so it has access to all of the token doubling and token manipulation that you might need to make it work. And finally, Korvold, Gleeful Glutton. Korvold is back, and definitely one of the more popular commanders in recent years. Korvold, this new one is 5, black, red, green. It is a legendary dragon noble. It costs 1 less to cast for each card type among permanents you sacrifice this turn. Flying, trample, haste. Whenever Korvold deals combat damage to a player, put X plus and also counters on it and draw X cards, where X is the number of permanent types among cards in your graveyard. So, it's not necessarily as strong as the OG Korvold. However, it's not super hard to bring out, especially if you're sacrificing stuff and playing a deck specifically devoted to sacrificing stuff, because obviously you have artifacts, you have creatures, you know, different card types, enchantments. You can reduce his cost and then bring him out. He's got all kinds of keywords that make him a bit of a threat to deal with, and then when he does deal damage, you get that draw power. You're going to probably have, you know, 3 or 4 different card types in grave, ideally, maybe 4 or 5 if you have a land, and then he's going to let you draw 5 cards, put counters on it. I mean, this is just a really interesting card. I don't know, you know, whether or not he makes more sense as a commander or whether or not he makes more sense in the 99 of like a dragon tribal deck where you can kind of bring him out easier. But either way, it's nice to see Korvold getting another powerful card, and I bet you people are going to gravitate towards this quite a bit because it's a really interesting card from a design perspective. So I think people are going to go for it. That's going to do it for this video, and I think that's going to pretty much wrap us up for Wilds of Eldraine, with the exception of the Fey Dominion Commander deck, which I'll be making a video on tomorrow. If you guys want to see more Wilds of Eldraine stuff, let me know. We'll probably take a look at the market and what that's going to look like, and sort of maybe do an analysis of all the anime versions of stuff and look at values. People seem to like that for Commander Masters. But I think that's pretty much it for the noteworthy stuff from the main set spoilers. Thank you guys for watching along. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.